Is Jaclyn Cosmetics testing on animals? In today's video, I want to talk about animal testing and help break down consumer confusion. I'm using this title and using this strange situation to try to dig into some topics that I feel people wouldn't otherwise be interested in or care about learning. And as someone who's worked in the beauty industry for over 10 years, I find it interesting how little people know about cosmetics. When it comes to our food, we're taught to read labels and know what's in it, and we count macros, but we don't always do that for cosmetics. And specifically, when it comes to animal testing, I've spoken about it a bit before, but I've never really gone in depth. And I think that as consumers, we have a right to know what's in our foods, what's in our cosmetics, and what we're putting in our bodies. And the more we can understand about how these industries work, what the problems are, as well as what the advantages are, we can make better choices for ourselves. And so we're going to talk about the process of animal testing, nothing graphic, but how it works, whether or not Jaclyn Cosmetics is cruelty-free, and kind of how this works from an industry standpoint. And when you hear of animal testing, you normally think of China. Why is that? China has a law that unfortunately requires any cosmetic sold from outside of China, if it's brought into China and sold on shelves, it must be tested on animals. That is a government regulation and it is sickening. We did a video about this back in August. That's, again, another 2-hour video, so I haven't had time to edit or upload it. But hopefully laws are changing. The problem is that what if a product is made here in the USA, this product never tests on an animal within the United States, but it decides to get sold in China on shelves? That would therefore make this product not cruelty-free because it has to be tested on animals in order to be sold. Even if this specific product was not, that's how it works. Now there is a loophole. There's a couple loopholes in China, such as direct to consumer, selling direct, and then also through Hong Kong. Hong Kong, in part of history, it's an island to the south. It was owned by Britain. And when it was reunited with China, they kept a lot of the same rules that people from Britain had brought in. So it's interesting how those laws and legalities work. Now, when it comes to animal testing, you also have to keep in mind the finished product is different than a raw ingredient. Raw ingredients are, think about baking a cake. You don't just poof, have a cake, right? You have to get flour and water and sugar and eggs, preferably vegan ones, right? And mix them all together. Some cosmetic company could sell you this cake or this product saying this finished product was not tested on animals. But that doesn't mean that the ingredients, such as the flour, sugar, and the water, were not. So then you as a consumer have to decide, okay, well, were the ingredients tested on animals or not? Now the other thing is that unfortunately, in the past, animal testing was used a ton, and it is still used heavily in medicine. In the United States, there's not a ton of animal testing for cosmetics, but it still happens. Usually animal testing happens overseas, and again, it's usually part of Chinese law and Chinese regulation. Now, when it comes to individual ingredients, in the past, a lot of these were tested on animals, and now they have been proven to be safe. So even though maybe, a specific ingredient, let's use coconut oil, which is, I'm sure someone's tested on animals, but usually this is not something that would merit animal testing. Let's say back in the 1930s, they wanted to see if coconut oil was safe, and unfortunately they tested it on cats, dogs, bunnies, and mice. And they determined that coconut oil was safe for human use and human consumption because of those animal studies. Then everyone can use coconut oil without having to go through these tests because it's already been tested. So now in 2019, people are like, oh yeah, we use coconut oil in our product and it's cruelty-free. And it is. But back in the 30s, it was tested by some people trying to figure it out. So then would you say that that makes the product not cruelty-free because maybe the company didn't even exist? But you see how just the history kind of sticks to us and follows us through time, which is kind of sad. Now the next thing is when it comes to medicines, and I want to keep in mind, over-the-counter products are called OTC. Those would be products like maybe some acne creams, stuff like that, cosmetics. You don't have to have a prescription. Prescription products and prescription drugs, unfortunately, are still required to be tested on animals. And that's because of what's called clinical trials. There's clinical phases when it comes to ensuring that a drug is both safe and effective. And this is something that I think is sad, but I understand both sides of the coin. That doesn't mean I agree with it, but I understand the logic behind both sides. When a new drug is being manufactured, this costs billions of dollars, usually by a pharmaceutical company. And what they do is that they actually start testing the ingredient, the main active ingredient, in animals. And they want to see, is it going to kill the animal? Is it going to cause harm? Is it going to be toxic? Because they don't want to put that in humans until they have tested its safety and efficacy, which is really sad. So you might ask, well, why do that on animals? Why don't you just do that on humans? That's where I'm at. You know, animals and humans have, even if their genomes are similar, or even if you genetically modify animals, we are very different. And what metabolizes one way in a rat or a cat is not going to metabolize the same way in you or me. So it's not really foolproof, and a lot can go wrong, and a lot has gone wrong. There was an Alzheimer's medication that was like killing people, even though it was proven to be fine in mice. But anyways, they test these in animals first. Then they bring them to a small group of people that are healthy, that don't even have disease, because they just want to see, is this medication going to kill the humans? There's phase 1, 2, and 3, and then there's preclinical. So after you test on animals, preclinical, you go into clinical, test on healthy humans. Then they open up that sample size a little bit more if nothing comes back bad. And they say, okay, now we're gonna actually test this on maybe a couple hundred sick people to see, does the medication do what we actually think it's going to do? And then from there, they test it on a wide group of people, so multiple people that meet certain criteria. And again, to pay for all of this, to do this research, it takes billions of dollars. But that is how they get a drug to market. And then once it is approved by the FDA, the Food and Drug Administration, they actually do a lot of marketing. They spend so much money on campaigns. You ever see those commercials like erections lasting up to 4 hours and like, you know, you're gonna bleed out of your eyeballs if you take this more than once a day? It's because those are side effects that were found in clinical trials, but they're trying to push these commercials out. You ever notice, like, yeah, doctors will recommend you a medication, but you notice it's the commercials that are really trying to get you to buy the medication? Isn't that strange? Did anyone else grow up and then like question that when they were older? And it is unfortunate, but in medicine, that's how it works. Again, I don't think that's always correct, but that's a discussion for another day. So when it comes to cosmetics and animal testing, it is unfortunately done here in the United States, but it's not very common. Again, usually this happens inside of the pharmaceutical industries or medical industries. Not as much in cosmetics, but it does happen. So specifically when it comes to a manufacturing facility that does have a lab attached to it, that does have research and development, R&D, that does have a manufacturing warehouse, are these companies testing on animals? Well, the truth is that we don't know unless we go to a specific company. And even if we go to that specific company, you have to look at the processes and procedures that they're doing. They could be shipping, if they are animal testing, they could be shipping this out to a third party who's testing it for them. Does animal testing happen in facilities? Usually not. It takes very specialized degrees in order to do this. It takes someone who understands medicine and statistics and human pathology and animal pathology and pharmacology, drugs, to understand how specific ingredients are going to work. So a lot of times it's shipped away. Now, in the case of very large companies that are maybe global and have US locations, it is possible that they do it all under one roof. Does it make sense? You know, if you're going to the grocery store to buy your groceries, are you gonna buy bananas at one store, run to the next store for coffee, run to the next store for bread? That's really cumbersome, right? And if you have a big superstore where everything is there together, it makes it a lot easier. And if you notice, a lot of cosmetic brands are pushing out new products every other month, right? Everyone has a new collection. The only way to do that is what's called optimizing your value chain. A value chain in business is basically how you get a product from an idea to actually into a consumer's hand. And the faster and more effective you can do that, the more you can push product, which is sad and consumer-based, but whatever. And when it comes to this value chain, there's a bunch of different steps, such as come up with the idea, create a basic prototype, make sure that it works, put it in, get the ingredients, put it into production, package it, then sell it to the customer. There's hundreds of steps in between, but that's the basic gist of it. If you can optimize each of those steps and make it go quicker from step to step or cut out steps in the middle, you can launch faster. So again, if you're making lipsticks and some guy, you know, who's the CEO of this lab decides that if he mixes it for 2 minutes less in each batch, they can save X amount of dollars because they have the next batch to do, you might get chunks in your lipstick, but do you see how that can push the value chain forward quicker? The other thing is when it comes to a value chain, when it comes to this consumerism, if you can optimize that, that's what companies want to do. And having everything under one roof would allow you to optimize, because you don't have to send the raw ingredients out to get pressed. Then you don't have to send them to get packaged or to get shipped. So if you can do that all in one, you have a time advantage, which would then turn into a cost advantage. So when it comes to these large manufacturing companies, it is possible that they're doing that. Now, is animal testing happening? Again, this is company policy secret, especially for privately held companies. They don't have to tell anybody. There are probably reports and there are probably some sort of government papers that I have not been able to find. And depending on the company in question, you might be able to explore that. But most of the time, a company will not even tell you if they ask, because it is controversial and it doesn't always work in humans. And especially if you're cosmetics, I don't think it's necessary. And I feel like we as consumers kind of have to step up. We have to start asking questions. We have to start doing our own research. And again, we shouldn't have to. This should just be understood. But the truth is that you buy this, let's say that it's called Beep Boop Bop Cosmetics. Beep Boop Bop Cosmetics does not have to tell you who made this. They could have made it themselves from scratch, put on all the hard work, or Beep Boop Bop Cosmetics could have been given a product. This is actually a product from a development manufacturer. They basically make this and they give it to people and they say, do you like it? And if you like it, you want to slap your name on it? That's what's called white, it's called labeling. And it's white bottle, white labeling, where you just get a white label and then you decide if you like it or not. So you don't know if Beep Boop Bop Cosmetics put in all the hard work or if they just slapped their name on something because it sounded good and they wanted it. And you also don't get to know where Beep Boop Bop Cosmetics made their products. It could say made in the USA, but was it packaged in the USA? Where did the raw ingredients come from? And that's why it's so hard to have ethical cosmetics that don't exploit child labor. And if you don't have those certifications that literally say cruelty-free or that literally say fair trade, nobody's coming in to check if these ingredients or if these processes are done in humane or sustainable manners. And the truth is that if consumers don't ask about humane and sustainable cosmetics, we're not going to get them. So it's a little bit about how it works. Also, no, you don't get to know, unfortunately, we don't get to know where these things are made, but there are ways of finding out. And if you want some information about how I tried to go about reading legal papers and trying to understand kind of like reverse engineering products, not from a chemistry standpoint, which is also very fun, but from a manufacturing standpoint and understanding ColourPop and Kylie Cosmetics, are they made within the same laboratory? There are certain ways to do that I find very fun, and yes, I do in my spare time. So when it comes to Jaclyn Cosmetics, is she testing on animals? She has claimed that she does not test on animals. And again, I'm using this Jaclyn Cosmetics not to attack anybody, literally, just because I feel that this is actually getting customers and consumers excited about understanding these things. And to me, that's important. So is she testing? Again, I don't know if she has the Leaping Bunny certification. The Leaping Bunny certification is that little bunny that you see, and that you actually have to pay for. That guaranteed cruelty-free. Now, if she doesn't have that, she could just be saying it's vegan and cruelty-free. This is a toothpaste that I use, and it says vegan and cruelty-free. I tend to believe that. But just because this brand is vegan and cruelty-free doesn't mean it wasn't made in a big manufacturing facility alongside with a laboratory that isn't cruelty-free. These could be made side by side. The second that they finish filling these tubes, they start filling these, right? But because they're a different brand, this one could be cruelty-free, and this one may be tested on animals. Maybe the raw ingredients, maybe the finished product. We don't know. And that's what's sad. And again, if this goes off to sell in China as of right now, yes, this would have to be tested on animals. But this is where consumer safety gets scary. So is Jaclyn Cosmetics tested on animals? If she claims that the product is not tested on animals, I'm inclined to believe that. There's a lot that's going on right now and a lot of distrust, but that's a big certification, and I don't think that that's being BS'd. The thing is that, is it being made by a company who is testing on animals? And is there crossover between any of the ingredients, or is there crossover between any of the raw materials? If you have other questions about this, please leave them in the comments below. I try to do daily videos here that focus on the science of skincare and chemistry of cosmetics. And if you enjoy or appreciate that, please let me know, because I think it's important and I find it interesting, and I hope that other people are interested in learning as well. So I love you, beautiful butterflies. Hope that you did learn something. Leave your comments below. Let's open up the discussion about what we think of this, and I'll see you in the next video. Love you guys. Bye.